Welcome. We are your hosts, Chris and Tammy.
In this podcast, we dive into the mindset for networking strategies and skills you'll need to build a solid foundation to build a global business.
We've built a multi-million-dollar business and have mentored thousands of people around the globe in the last 25 years.
Generally, when I ask someone, I ask them what their goals are. What do they want out of life? What do they want to achieve? And because there's different level of intensity of work, right? There's folks that are looking to make six-figure a year. Some will want to make six-figure a month. So it's a different level of intensity. It's a different level of work. But at the end of the day, it's important to understand what they want. And if someone is on the fence right now about this business, my first recommendation is get on the product. We talked about that. What I would suggest from there is to get an understanding of how the pay structure works. And for that reason, we have many webinar sessions. Some are pre-recorded on some YouTube channels that will be given to you by the person that invited you to watch this. So the fact is to get a better understanding of this business model. Because let's face it, sometimes there is a little bit of a stigma based on what Uncle Tom or Aunt Jane might have said about it, really without knowing exactly what's going on.
I think less and less today, people are not as resistant to the profession because people are looking for that extra income and to be able to work from home. And through the last few difficult years, people have adjusted to be able to work from home. So I think it's a lot easier today for people to make decisions to come into this business. Yes. And every time I personally connect with somebody, they know what I do for a living. And I think it's important not to hide what you're doing. I think it's important to be right up front. I'm in a business, I work from home, I love what we do, I love the impact that we're making. We've got this amazing product. Now, if they move towards the product, then I move towards the product.
That's it.
Right? And if they start asking about the business, well, I shift towards the business, and we might talk about the product after. So if they move towards a product and they want to try the product first, they know in the back of their head that there's an opportunity. And I'll still invite them to a webinar so they get a little bit more information, or I'll get on a Zoom session. I mean, Erica and I, we met on Facebook. Yes. A year ago. A year ago in February.
That's right.
So over a year ago, and she started on the product with her husband Pierre, and from there it just snowballed into business interest, and then now Pierre has really taken interest based on your stories, your testimonies, and yeah.
Yeah, and I
that's a perfect example, right?
I think that's exactly. I think it's a perfect example if you're taking the products. Like, I was very hesitant. Skeptical, yeah. So I was very hesitant, and for me, I need to digest things slowly, and I have to understand. And I was really sold because it was really a relationship with myself and a product, and it convinced me. And the other thing that is really important to note, and I don't think we talk about this enough, is that contrary to some of the other businesses out there, there is no inventory that you have to have in your house of the product. It's strictly references, and it's all online. And this is another thing that I would like to talk about with Chris and Tammy, because they are Canadians, and I'm sure when you got into Max International day one, February 3rd, 2007,
at 1:30 p.m.
At 1:30 p.m., you had no idea that most of the business would come from the Philippines or from Africa.
No.
No, you're right. You're right. At first, when this started, we were not in a position financially of strength.
No.
It was very challenging. I mean, we wrote a book on our story so people can understand that you can be in a position of disadvantage and completely change your stars with this business model, with this venture.
Yeah.
And that's not a joke. That's why we wrote the book on it. And not only us, but we've seen, I mentioned that earlier in other segments that we talked about on videos we've done with you guys, that there are some team members that started from poverty that are now very wealthy people because of this venture. So the fact is to keep an open mind, to have a better understanding, but we live in a society where people think like consumers. How much does it cost? And is it going to work? And that's the reason this is often the reason why starting with a product, it's not a bad move at all. In fact, that's my default. If I'm for me, when I talk to someone, I will start with the business opportunity because that's what I'm promoting. This is what I'm talking about. But like Tammy said, if someone turns around and is leaning towards the product, and that's really what they want to hear about, well, that's what I'm going to be focusing my attention on. And I will make sure that they get a good understanding of what this is, and we'll order it for them to start benefiting from the product. But like Tammy say, often they know there's a venture, and there are others that are going to say, listen, can you make money with that? And there's people that are very business driven. And if you never talk about the business and you always lead with the product, never mentioning the business in fear they may be turned off, you may miss some of the greatest opportunities that you'll come in your lifetime. So that's why it's important to have a balance between the two. And that's what I mentioned earlier is there's different opportunities to watch the information. Go see a presentation, see for yourself. And the work is really not that difficult. Really, there's really 3 major components. There's 8 ways we get paid, but there's really 3 major components in how we get paid. Someone decides to start the business, they buy a package, money is paid to the person who invited them. At the same time, as they start qualifying for the initial stages, as you start building business, then there's a monthly payment that starts.
And right there, you can almost pay for the products that you're...
Well, that's my point.
Exactly.
And it's designed for that, is to basically cover your costs.